Is a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Colleen?
Okay, we've got a couple requests here for different things, and I will ask Mike Redlinger if he has somebody that's with the TEDx group.
I'm not sure if these mics are on. I assume you can hear me either way. Okay.
Yes.
I'm Lee Schwartz. I'm the Director of Marketing for Emerging Prairie. I just started there about 2 months ago, but I was kind of voluntold to come to the meeting today to represent us on behalf of our request to use Eventbrite for TEDx for the 2020 event. And I asked a couple things, some frustration. So I found out on Monday I needed to attend this meeting, but I didn't to the website to try to find agendas, minutes from past meetings, and there's nothing there. It doesn't even have the correct members listed on the website for this, or on the web page for this committee. There's no way for me to find out, even if we were on the agenda, and the calendar for the city of Fargo, which has every other event listed, does not even have this meeting on it. So I stand in front of you today, I wasn't even sure until you just asked if we were even on the agenda for today. So again, a point of frustration for somebody who's been here for the first time. So I'm here today to address, we had sent a letter on November 8th to ask that we could again use Eventbrite as our ticketing solution for our event TEDx. I understand there's been some contention on this issue in the past, and I'm not really sure why. I have a long history of event management and venue management, and I've signed ticketing contracts myself, and my recollection is almost every one of those ticketing contracts had some exception on behalf of the venue that they could make in cases where they, in some cases it was just carte blanche. If you feel like you need to make an exception, you have 2 of these a year you can do, or in some cases it was specifically written into the contract where you could make an exception for a nonprofit, make an exception for specific types of events. So I guess I'm not sure what the stance is of this commission. I understand this request was denied last year, and I'd like to hear the reasoning and maybe what the thinking is for this request this year.
Wasn't denied, you did use Eventbrite last year.
I believe it was denied, and then we had to go through different channels to get it accepted. Is that not correct?
Correct.
So is it, are you guys voting on this issue today?
Are you requesting us to do that? Mike Redlinger, you want to shed some light on what's going on here? Because I think you probably know more about it, and then if we have any other issues, we'll ask Rob to say a couple of things.
Well, thank you, and good morning, Auditorium Commission members, and thanks for your time this morning. Like last year, you heard from Emerging Prairie asking for an exception to be able to utilize their preferred technology vendor, which is Eventbrite, for the purposes of ticketing for TEDx. And the city of Fargo, as we said last year, is still consistent this year. We've been a supporter of Emerging Prairie really for a long time. This has been an event at the Civic Center for the last several years, and we've been a longstanding supporter. We're an annual supporter of Emerging Prairie, and it's been something that we've really stood behind. TEDx is really about bringing thousands of people into downtown. It's been a great branding opportunity for the Civic and for the city of Fargo. The November 8th request, as referenced, is to allow for 1 more year of this exception. There is a process underway right now that you're also going to hear about today to do a ticketing RFP. The Fargo Dome Authority is working on this in collaboration with the Civic Center. And so change is coming in this area that will have some bearing and weight on future events. But for this year and this year only, the request from Emerging Prairie is to continue as they did just last year and do this for 1 more year for their 2020 event, which I believe is in July 30th of 2020. So that's the context and the background. This would be a 1-year request that is being in front of the Auditorium Commission, and if you act on that today, that would allow just for the single year only for 20.
Rob, may I ask you a question sitting out there in the audience? I understand that we have a contract with Ticketmaster right now. And it specifically says that we cannot allow anyone else to provide ticket servicing to us.
You can ask me questions and I can give you opinions. I cannot render statements because I don't have managerial oversight on the commission or over the city civic center. Yes, I am aware that you do have an existing agreement in place with Ticketmaster. I believe it renews annually, as I believe the initial date was 2006, and I think the initial term was for 5 years. And extensions, there were automatic extensions on an annual basis, unless notice was given by either party at certain dates and times. I am not aware that notices from either party have taken place since 2011, when the initial term would have expired.
May I ask you another question? If this request for proposal is gonna go through with a joint deal with the Civic and the Fargo Dome, are we putting ourselves in any jeopardy for doing this?
Well, I can say that our ticketing contract at the Fargo Dome's ticketing contract, computerized ticketing contract, is currently in place through December 31st of 2020. We have started, or Susan Thompson, our Director of Finance, has started the process. The request for proposal for new systems has been published. We're trying to do it a little early, obviously, because of being part of the city and the state. We have to set our operating budgets quite early compared to the calendar. So we'd like to have a decision by April to May so that we can incorporate those numbers into our 2021 budget. And as part of this, whether it's buying power or just a synergy between the two facilities, we were asked to include the Civic Center as part of this RFP. And we do feel it's a good idea as well. You'd have staff at both places with knowledge of the system.
Hey, Mike, can I ask you a question? You know, when I joined this board a couple of years ago, we are aware of our contract with Ticketmaster, and if I'm not speaking out of turn, everybody, we were trying to make a more strict adherence to that contract with Ticketmaster, which is why we have been reluctant in the past to disregard that contract and make a special arrangement with other people who want their own ticketing system. Is that correct, guys? So my question is a legal one to you. What are any legal ramifications if we do not strictly adhere to that Ticketmaster contract? Are we okay to make a special arrangement with Lee and his group?
Thank you for the question, and let me first offer a very strong disclaimer. That is that I have no JD, and I'm not a lawyer, and will not make a remark about the kind of merits of the current agreement. As noted, it is an agreement that is really out of date with current practices, current technologies. I think this group has tried to reach out to Ticketmaster over time to try to understand what can you do, what can't you do. Can't speak for the group, but I understand they feel that technology and that capability that they offer is not going to serve their needs for here and now. But as I said earlier, I think that regardless of the decision of this board today, there will be change in this area simply because we're going to come into one new umbrella agreement that will likely speak with specificity to several types of event uses, whether they be here up at the Dome, and we need to be respectful of those terms. So, I really can't speak to the technical merits and the legal merits of the agreement from 2006. We've clearly had this precedent of being permissive of the activity for several years. And again, I think if the board is to act today, it should just be for this 1 year only, simply because we will have a new agreement that will be the new agreement to supplant what we've had for this old agreement here, as well as the Dome agreement with whomever vendor that shall be. So that's really the only context I can provide, just that I know this group did try work through them and try to get some questions answered, and just didn't feel that it rose to their level of satisfaction. So I think that's about as far as we can go on that.
So Lee, you can understand our reticence, our reluctance in the past, trying to please everybody at the same time adhere to a contract?
Yeah, I know some of you know, I mean, I have booked, promoted, and marketed about 750 events in my life, so I'm well versed in ticketing contracts, including with Ticketmaster. I understand that they are a big animal and a 800-pound gorilla when it comes to these contracts, but I also understand that, I mean, just think about this. I mean, I know some of the careers of the people on this board, and I know that you guys have all been to probably hundreds of business seminars and business trade shows and things like that. How many of those have you ever bought a ticket from Ticketmaster to go to one of those? I mean, I've been to 100 myself, and I've never had to go through Ticketmaster. So I would argue that either you should be able to make an exception for this type of event, because this is a business conference, more or less, or else I would argue that you have a terrible ticketing contract. And neither one of those things should force us to have to move the event or come up with different solutions to be able to host the event there. The only thing I was able to actually see on the webpage for this committee was your videos. So I watched some of those, and I've seen you guys make accommodations for promoters from out of town that even to me seemed really risky, but you guys gave them benefit of the doubt. You figured out a way to make it work for them. And here we are, a local company bringing a great event to your venue, and we feel like we have to force our way in.
Lee, I would like to step back and just remind you that we think your program is great and we want to have it here. But we don't want to have ourselves in a situation if Ticketmaster comes in and enforces that contract and we don't have anything to use to ticket. And that's what the contract says. That
Your contract specifically says you are not allowed to make any exceptions throughout the year.
Well, but they also would remove the equipment that we currently have.
Because I know like the Lakes event that you guys did with Dirk, he doesn't ticket his event. So I know that there's an exception for that. And I obviously it's a non-ticketed event. We are self-ticketing. We are basically managing the entire ticketing operation on our own, which isn't much different from a free event, to be honest with you, from an operation standpoint.
Anybody else?
Hadn't we asked for a legal opinion from the city attorney from a previous meeting we talked about this?
And I have not heard anything back.
Mike, do you know anything about that?
I do not, no. I don't believe we had an active request.
Bruce, have you got any?
Legal opinion, I'm not aware. All I'm aware of is if you've allowed this 5 years previously under the Ticketmaster agreement.
So there's a precedent.
But I think if you remember, most of us had no idea that we were violating it until it came up last year.
That may be, but the action's the action, and so you have a request in front of you. I think it's with a January 1, 2021 new ticketing system on the calendar. It's just a decision the board has to make if you want to allow this one more year or not. Ticketmaster, the 5 previous years, hasn't sought relief. Doesn't mean they won't this year, but they haven't, so.
So do we need to vote on this?
Do we need to vote on it today? Can we get an opinion from Ticketmaster?
We can, or we can discuss it for a few days or whatever, think about it, and then make an opinion. It's up to you guys.
Lee, what's your drop dead date?
As soon as possible. I mean, we want to actually get tickets on sale, and if you guys only meet quarterly, that's going to be, what, 3 months from now? And that's going to be well past the day we normally would start selling tickets.
When is the date?
What date do you want to start doing your tickets?
I don't know. I'm not the event manager for this. I'm just here to represent, so.
Okay, because I know they usually start in January or February.
Could we possibly try to expedite a legal opinion and then make this vote in a special meeting in the next couple of weeks?
Lee, we want you here, but we want to make sure that we're not sticking our neck out so far that we're cutting it off until there's a new contract. And we have a real reading on what we're supposed to be able to do here.
I appreciate that. I just figured that maybe that process had already been since this is the, fifth year in a row we've had to make this request, I just kind of thought maybe that bridge had been crossed already, but if it hasn't, we can wait 2 weeks.
Lee, the difference is that there have been some new membership to this committee and a few changes, and with that, and finding out that this contract with Ticketmaster was in force, we kind of decided as a group that, boy, we should probably adhere to the contract. That's been the change over the last 5 years. But your precedent has already been established, and we want your event here. We think highly of Emerging Prairie and TEDx, and so we want to get that done. We just, as Jim said, we want to make sure that
I can certainly
our due
empathize. Again,
diligence.
I've worked with Ticketmaster before, and I know exactly what it's like to work with them, so I can appreciate those thoughts. I just don't want it to damage this event for this upcoming year.
we don't either,
waiting.
Lee. We don't either. So can we get that legal opinion quicker,
We will get it.
and then we'll do a vote?
Okay, and you will notify us somehow that
I
we'll be?
will.
Thank you.
Bill. Do you have a phone number I can reach you at?
701-306-4497.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Lee.
Go ahead.
Okay. Finance report. Wait, you want to do Rob? Rob, do you want to do your
let's-
thing next? Please?
Do your thing, Rob.
I was unaware I was doing anything, so are you looking for vaudeville, stand-up?
Both.
Okay.
We want to know some upcoming acts, the Dome, when you're bringing Sir Paul back, that kind of thing.
Got any magic tricks?
Well, I guess what I will do is update you with as we just talked about with the Fargo Dome. Ticketing RFP has been advertised. I believe we've had eight companies show interest. Obviously, the heavy hitters in our world of ticketing, which is mainly concerts, NDSU football, theater, Broadway shows, things such as that. Ticketmaster, Paciolan, who is our current provider, Paciolan, eTix, several others have asked for the RFP instructions and the submittals. The submittals will be due, responses will be due Friday, January 17th. From that point, we will take January and the rest of January and February to review the responses. We will then pick a few of the responders will be picked to come in probably to Fargo to give a presentation. That will happen sometime in February. And then obviously we will then from those presentations recommend up to the Fargo Dome Authority Finance and Building Committees, which will then go to the Fargo Dome Authority Committee, which will then go to the City Commission. The Civic Center has been written in here as an option, as to be included. So in that evaluation time, there will need to be conversations with Colleen and this board likely to get your opinion or anything such as that. If you have not seen a copy of the RFP, we do have copies here if you'd like to get a copy so you can read through it. Essentially, the general criteria is the quality, reliability, and overall functionality of the vendor's products, the vendor's ability to provide the necessary support in regards to the equipment and technology, the city venues, ticketing and marketing staff, and ticket buying patrons, the vendor's experience in providing integrated ticketing and marketing solutions for facilities similar to a building such as the Fargo Dome and or Fargo Civic Center, the overall cost effectiveness of the solution, and the vendor's ability to meet the implementation date, which would be January 1st of 2021. However, the Fargo Dome for sure will be in a unique situation since we have events go on sale far in advance. For example, concerts for 2020, June, Elton John is already on sale. Maroon 5, that ticket on sale is actually at noon today. There's your concert announcement, Dan.
Thank you.
And then overall business and financial viability and clarity and completeness. So those will be the evaluation criteria as we go through. and look at that for looking at the best solution. As you probably can imagine, since we've been with Pacquiao since 2011, we renewed for 2016, so the 16 to 2020 term. And even in this term, the world of concert and venue ticketing is changing rapidly. It is changing monthly and yearly. So I assume you can, I make the assumption that you can figure the advancements in Ticketmaster system or other systems since the Civic Center did sign that contract in 2006. But that's for further updates and further presentations. Okay. Any questions?
Rob, do you anticipate, like, the Civic being able to sell Fargo Dome tickets?
I think that would be a point of discussion. If we're on the same ticketing system, there could very well be a point where people may be able to buy a ticket for the Fargo Dome at the Fargo Civic Center, or they may be able to buy a ticket for the Fargo Civic Center event at the Fargo Dome. That really depends upon staffing and everywhere. We do staff our ticket office on a daily basis, business day daily basis. I'm not completely clear of the staffing, daily staffing of the Fargo Civic Center. I do know Colleen is there and is available at times, but obviously it is online as well. And that's...
At the Civic, we are Monday through Friday, noon to 4:30 in our business office.
So there could be that opportunity. Now, that doesn't mean that somebody would be able to come to the Fargo Civic Center and purchase a ticket for the Red River Valley Sportsman Show, because that is not an event that would be for sale online. But they could come and purchase a ticket to Maroon 5, potentially, if we have that arrangement.
Well, I could see where we could be of some help, because there's a lot of people that don't like going all the way to the Fargo Dome. And I'm not talking about your first day of issue and those types of things. It's just regular.
Absolutely, regular business. Yeah, we would likely discourage or not have it available for the first day on sale or even the first week. It would be the 2 months in or type of situation. But those would all be things that would need to be discussed further and implemented and worked out.
I'm ashamed to admit that I was around when we did the Ticketmaster contract the last time, and that was a long, drawn-out thing with the presentations and the rest of it. And I would recommend that we maybe have a member of this board sit in on all of those, and probably Colleen too.
Colleen is more than welcome to, and actually Dan Armbrust serves on the Fargo Dome Authority as well.
Are you recommending him?
Well, I don't think I can, but I would suggest it.
Is there a second?
Second.
You got him. You're stuck with him.
So he'll be involved, and actually Susan Thompson, our Director of Finance, Colleen Moriarty, our Ticket Office Manager, and Alex Nyer, our Assistant Ticket Office Manager, as well as Sarah Dykema, our Director of Marketing and Sales, and Morgan Matheson, our Associate Sales and Marketing Associate. She's going to kill me because I think I just botched her title, but she'll get over it. They will be heavily involved because Ticketmaster, Pacquiao, I believe eTix as well, I'm not as familiar as you go down the list, have very, very robust customer relationship management systems as well. And that is something that is taking place all the time.
What are some of the other ticketing outfits that have asked?
Of those other three, none that we recognize, apparently. There are some offshoots here and there that come through. In our focus, there's ticketing groups that know what our business is, and they see 18 to 23,000 for concerts. NDSU is actually not going to be part of this contract this time. They have decided to go with Pacquiao via our operating agreement with NDSU. They do control their own ticketing, so they do have that right. But so they're, the other ones we don't necessarily, we're not familiar with.
Anybody got anything else for Rob? Thank you, and
Thank you.
you keep Colleen
What did you say the time frame for this decision?
Responses are due January 17th. They'll be reviewed that January, February timeframe. And then those that we decide for further interview will be brought in to Fargo, or they will come to Fargo, likely in February. And those meetings will be noticed, and Colleen will have that schedule, and we can get her a copy of every response we receive as well. And if this advisory board would like it, we can certainly get you copies of those as well.
You give me the copy, I'll get the copies to them.
Perfect. Great.
Thank you, Rob.
Thanks,
Thank
Rob.
you.
Thanks, Rob.
Thank you.
Okay,
Now, Colleen.
financial report. I handed you out the one for November.
Yep.
I hadn't had it and, looks kind of bleak.
Yeah, what are the repairs?
That's the changing over of, the heating and cooling system all over to the Civic. That's the outside of the building. And inside of the building for repairs and, to redo the outside, and that has not been completed yet, so I don't know how much more will be added on to that.
Well, all that needed to be done.
Right. Also, the electricity, the energy. I talked to Bruce and Mike about that. It's over doubled. Some months, most of those were in the summer, which we don't have the air on in the Civic unless we have an event. So, Mike, did you get any response to that?
We did have a brief conversation with the finance staff. Happy to provide a summary of the accounts and kind of how they were reviewing the electricity. There was some change of accounts that had happened more on the accounting side, so yeah, we'll get that detail.
Okay, thank you. So that mess gonna be changing. Otherwise, if you didn't count in the maintenance and repairs and the problems with the electrical, we'd probably be better than last year.
Do you have more maintenance and repairs coming up, or?
Well, the wall outside on the east side has not been completed on the outside or the inside. I don't know, the boiler they're having trouble with the old boiler. It maybe have to be replaced still. I don't know. Do you know anything about that, Bruce?
I don't know the specific boiler, no. I mean, I would defer that to our facilities manager, Brock Morrison, but I do know that Randy and representatives from the boiler manufacturer, I think, in Overmiller and Nelson, I'm not a boiler expert, just like Rob isn't, but they pull the top off, they look at things. They did that about a year ago and determined that, if things go well, you probably got a number of years of life left in those. And with the question, will the Civic Center remain standing or not, investing in a brand new boiler, that's a significant investment. The decision was made based on what they saw. Let's stick with what we have. They felt good about that decision, so I'm disappointed to hear that one might be maybe failing, but.
Well, we had, the heat was shut off about a week and a half ago for about a day and a half because they had to drain it to do some repairs.
Okay.
That's all I know on that.
Well, you remove the electricity bill, repairs and maintenance, and the compensation workers received, and this bill is about $19,000, so that's significant. So yeah, it was scheduled, it was on pace to be less than last year. But you've got to do what you got to do.
That's what I have for the finance. Director's report, everything's kind of going as scheduled. We do have the Salvation Army coming up, and we do have a new event On the 20th of December, it's a Santa Dash Run, which Downtown Community Partnership is doing. They also are going to be doing an undie run in January, and they've got 2 more runs on our books for March and April.
They're doing an undie run?
Yes,
February?
yeah, February.
Jim's heading us up.
So I asked them what
the
they were.
Grand Marshal
Yeah,
over
I asked them what they were doing, and they said, well, they just need a spot that people can come, pick up their packets. Then they're supposed to strip down to their undies,
Really?
and they're gonna run 1 block, around 1 block outside,
In February?
in
Fargo?
February, in Fargo. Yes.
Wow, that should make the news.
That could be national.
It could be. We do have a couple of, we have got the Boy Scout pancake coming up. That's gonna be a new one. RDO equipment in January is a new one for us.
What is that event?
Pardon?
What is that event?
They're introducing their new equipment, to vendors. So they're gonna be bringing in big equipment and having some sales meetings and stuff like that. They're here for 3 days.
Terrific.
Oh,
So, we also have, in March, we've got another dance competition that came in. It's Masquerade Dance. The gentleman is out of, Tennessee, coming up here. So that's a new one also for us. So,
I see you got roller derby back.
roller derby's gonna be back, yep.
Nice.
And then we've got 2 concerts in May, and tickets are already on sale for those. They've been on sale for over a month.
By the way, I attended the Doobie Brothers concert here a couple of months ago. Anybody else come to that show that night? Boy, was that terrific. The Civic really shined that night. It was a really great show. They put on a wonderful evening, and my kudos to the Civic Center. What a great show that night. It was a great time.
Thank you.
Boy Scouts are real excited about being here with flipping pancakes on January 31st.
Is that the
Yeah.
same group we had last year?
We've never had, oh, they came and asked for a reduction.
Oh, yeah.
Yep, same group. They were in this week again checking electrical things, for their pancake things. And I think they've got it figured out. They're all really excited about it. So, yeah.
Golden brown pancakes.
Yeah.
Baby.
Yeah.
Lots of syrup.
Lots of syrup, homemade syrup, and they serve
really?
ice cream at the end.
Homemade syrup
Yep.
from maple trees in Minnesota or something, or what?
Well, no, but it's homemade. It's not bought off the shelf.
Well, that sounds like a wonderful day.
And the Boy Scouts do the serving and stuff.
Absolutely.
You will not go away hungry.
Wonderful.
All right, anybody else got anything?
Colleen, is this building connected to the Civic, or do you gotta walk outside to get back and forth?
I have to walk outside.
Is it not gonna be connected at all?
Well, we certainly need to know if the Civic is gonna stand before.
Yeah,
it
where are
goes.
we at with that?
You'd have to speak to a member of the committee. I see 2 of them out here in the audience. I don't think a final decision's been reached on the.
Could we ask what the status is? Mike?
Sorry about that, Mike, but thanks for being here.
See if I could, before I provide that update, Colleen, in response to your question earlier in the financials, your question about electricity, if I could answer that since everybody's gathered. The finance department had an allocation for our building and grounds staff to participate in a cost share with the Civic for those utility costs. And so there was a finance decision with our building and grounds staff to try to just reallocate some of those dollars. So the Civic budget will be increased accordingly to pay for those utility bills because they'll get the 100% allocation of those costs. And there isn't another entity that's going to participate in those costs. So that's your short answer on utilities and why it looks higher. It's because it's not being paid partially by somebody else any longer. So the status of the Performing Arts Center and Task Force right now is that we are wrapping a report. We met with Commissioner Dave Pepcorn, who's the chair of our Performing Arts Task Force, just recently, about 2 to 3 weeks ago, and we're wrapping a final report that will summarize the feasibility level analysis of that study and what we think a program might cost. One of the early cost estimates that came in was significantly higher than where we left the previous study in 2015. So we really need to wrap our heads around, if we are to think about a facility, what's the public-private composition of that facility? And how would one start a fundraising campaign? What would that look like? Who would lead it? Would it be the city? Would it be entities from the outside in the private sector that would lead that? So that is very much still in a study phase and process. As it relates to the Civic Center, as Bruce said, there are no decisions that have been made simply because there is no financial plan, there is no construction plan, or really our final feasibility level of analysis about whether or not the Performance Center could be financially feasible and have the kind of market share to be able to be supported. So that's something that we're going to study here this winter and try to bring that to a finish line. But the idea is that we're going to come to the City Commission in the first quarter of 2020, probably by late January or February, just to summarize what the work of that task force did. And so no decisions have been made, but that's a very brief status report. But that report will certainly get in the hands of this board as well when it's complete. I think you'll find some of the data and some of the statistics interesting. There are some shows and likely some opportunities to bring people here, but our location is a challenge between the Minneapolis and Montana and Washington state markets. We spent a lot of time, and I won't get into that today, but we spent a lot of time in that market piece, and that's a very key piece that you have to have understood well. Do you have enough underpinning for that facility and enough new market and enough new acts to be able to keep that facility busy? So we're going to study that and finish that up. So I'll leave it at that. Happy to answer any other questions.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, anything else?
Nope. Event evals?
They're going around. Look like, other than Ticketmaster, things look pretty good. Billy, Bruce, you got anything?
No, Mr. Chair.
It's a dubious honor.
We didn't have any lost business. Coming events, we kind of went over that already. And if anybody has any new business,
Do we, I may have asked this before, but does the Civic have a organization, Colleen, probably falls on your shoulders, where we're actively marketing the facility to rock and roll acts?
we don't have marketing.
Okay.
Have a marketing.
Rob, does the Fargo Dome actively pitch themselves to attract events to the Fargo Dome? Do you guys, what is the process for getting Maroon 5? Do they just call you?
I was sitting at home on a Sunday and Adam called me up. No. Obviously, with a long track record, the building markets itself, but we do obviously have very good relationships with Live Nation, AEG, Big Productions, Police Productions,
Okay.
Jade Presents.
So you've,
On the concert side, so we actively advertise in trade magazines like Polestar and things such as that. Not on a regular basis because it's $1,500 to $3,000 an ad, $1,500 to $3,000 an ad, and they know where we're at. We are a member, myself and a couple of my colleagues are members of our professional association, International Association of Venue Management. We belong to the Arena Network, the Fargo Dome does, which is another marketing side and informational resource for myself for marketing, different things such as that they represent us in some meetings when they meet with agents and artist management promoters, but also they're available. They're allowed to give out our avails if they have an agent that contacts them and says, "Hey, I'm looking to bring artist X through, look into the Midwest, can you show me all give me the avails for all your Midwest venues?
You attend trade shows, things like that?
There is the International Association. There is a Polestar, which is a music industry one, and a Billboard one. Unfortunately, the Polestar is in February, right usually on top of a couple of our major events. The Billboard is in November, right on top of a couple of our major events. The way our building's staffed, I have 100% confidence in our staff if I'm not there. I just don't like to ask them to work 90 hours that week so I can go to California, which
Understand.
you guys are more than welcome to visit California instead of me. Sorry, my editorial comment. But so there are different things there that we meet, but also what I will go to is either a International Association of Venue Management conference, which is usually in July, or the Arena Network does have meetings on the Polestar or the Billboard meetings. It's expensive to go out for 1 or 2 days to fly out of Fargo and everything such as that, but they're worth it. You get in front of it, right in front of people, and just get to face. But we do work very closely with most of the national promoters as well.
Thank you, Rob. Bruce, I would suggest that if the verdict comes down that the Civic will remain, that as we enhance partnership with the Fargo Dome, have the same ticketing operation, maybe the Fargo Civic could be part of the pitch. Maybe we could start something like that in the future. Agreed. So that we would, if we are going to stay, if the Civic is going to remain, that we would have an entity that would pitch the Civic to acts, medium-sized acts that would come to the Dome.
I agree with that, and even with respect to, we've had some issues come up lately regarding access to the building and some security issues, and I would like to consider, if that is the decision, the Civic remains, what kind of investment needs to be made. Could there be any synergies gained by, in the city of Fargo, we own the Fargo Dome, the Civic Center, and even Newman Outdoor Field. Could there be a kind of an overarching central management for our event venues? Just try to get synced up on things and take advantage of, Colleen might be short-staffed one day. It happens. She only has 3 people in the whole Civic. So it's challenging trying to be able to cover time slots and those type things. So I'd like to consider that over the winter.
That is like unmined gold.
Yeah.
To me, while you guys are making the decision whether or not the Civic should remain, if it should come down that way, I think we could probably enhance our bottom line and our financials if we had an entity out there, pitching the Fargo Civic Center nationally. Again, go back to that Doobie Brothers concert a couple of weeks ago. Was just a huge success. It came off without a hitch. I would have liked to seen more people in the building, but at the same time, I thought the Civic reported themselves fantastically, and the show was a great success. It'd be fun to have something like that at the Civic every month.
Yep, great to hear.
I think too, it's possibility of having an overhead, but maybe we would have an intern from one of the universities or college in the area that could be working on marketing and doing some of those types of things too, because they would benefit from it, and we would really benefit from it if we had something going that direction. All right, anybody got anything? I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.